Hello, folks. I'm Josh McGee, and welcome to another episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, very excited to be back once again with a new episode this week. It's been a very hectic week on my end. A lot of different appointments. Obviously, the inclement weather kind of had a lot of my attention, so I don't have a guest this week. Hopefully, you all will be able to withstand me blabbering for a while, but I just wanted a really chill episode this week, and also there's plenty of soccer news to get to. As far as the home studio goes, you guys have pretty much seen my entire soccer collection up to this point. So for the time being, until I get some new gear, it'll be all about just mixing and matching different things that you guys have seen in previous episodes. For this week, had to break out the Cardinals Soccer Night jersey due to the fact that pitchers and catchers reported this week. Of course, I am wearing my U.S. Women's National Team World Cup shirt in honor of the SheBelieves Cup kicking off this weekend. Very excited to see the national team and what they can do against the competition they'll be playing there. And of course, over here on this shoulder, had to break out the French national team jersey. It's a big focal point of the biggest story from this past week in soccer, and it'll be the main focus, or at least someone who wears the current French national team shirt will be the biggest focus of my opening monologue here. I want to start off by talking about a point that came to me late Tuesday afternoon, and that is the fact that a lot of excitement in sports is built up on paper. We always hope that big matchups and big-time games produce the level of play that we come to expect, whether it be in the playoffs or big regular season matchups in a multitude of different sports, and especially in soccer. We hope that the matchups that we usually don't get to see between two clubs who play in different leagues live up to the hype. But because of the way things are set up, sometimes teams only need a point. Sometimes a 1-0 grinded out ugly game is all that is needed. We usually see a lot of disappointing results and a lot of disappointing matchups that don't live up to the hype. That is, of course, the case a lot of the times in the Champions League, when we see, like I said, two clubs that meet together that we normally don't get to see with big-time players on both sides. Sometimes it just doesn't live up to our expectations. Well, this past Tuesday, that was not the case. The Champions League returned, and it returned in style with the very first matchup being Barcelona versus PSG. The last time these two clubs met in the Champions League, it was that thrilling 6-1 comeback at home for Barcelona that advanced them into the next round of that season's Champions League. But that first tie, of course, if you remember, was a PSG blowout. Well, we kind of got a similar type of result here. It was a fantastic match. It was played at hyperspeed. One of those matches where you could not take your eye off for even a second, or you were going to miss something. And it played out just like a Greek epic would. You had an early goal by Barcelona to take a 1-0 lead. It was a kind of a controversial penalty. In my opinion, players shouldn't be rewarded for tripping himself up in the box. I don't care how much contact there was. That was definitely more so on De Jong. But Messi stepped up, buried the penalty. Barcelona took a 1-0 early lead. And again, PSG were without Neymar. They were without Angel Di Maria. They needed a hero. They needed someone to step up and salvage something in this match so they could take advantage back home for the second leg. Enter Kylian Mbappe. Started out with the equalizer, tricky ball into the box by Marco Verratti. Great little chip. Mbappe had to control it perfectly. He was able to do so, get it on his left foot, and then just smash the shot into the back of the net to tie things up at 1 and get in a crucial away goal. Fast forward to the second half, Mbappe scores what would eventually be the game-winning goal by being at the right place at the right time and smashing home another shot for his second goal of the match. After a Moise Kean goal made it 3-1, Mbappe finished off the match and completed his hat trick off of a blistering counterattack from PSG, where he got the ball basically in the box and curled in a beautiful effort to the top right corner. Fantastic man of the match type of performance, the type of performance PSG needed with those players being out. 4 away goals, a stunning 4-1 beatdown of Barcelona, much like that first leg all those years ago, except that was in Paris, obviously. This time, PSG do it on the road and take a commanding lead into the second leg versus Barcelona. Of course, the story coming out of that match and really coming out of this week, despite the fact that we had 3 other really good Champions League matches, is, of course, Mbappe. He's now up to 24 Champions League goals in his career, more than his current age of 22. He also became the first player since Andrei Shevchenko in 1997 to score a visiting hat trick versus Barcelona. For his career, Mbappe has now scored 154 goals for club and country at the senior level. For context, Lionel Messi scored 140 goals before he turned the age of 23. Cristiano Ronaldo scored 102. Mbappe doesn't turn 23 until December. So it's very conceivable that he's going to hit or eclipse the 200 goal mark before he turns 23. That's just insane. Just this meteoric rise that he's had to his career. It started at Monaco, made the move to PSG, and of course winning the World Cup with France as their best player. It's just an amazing start to a young man who is still reaching the prime of his career. He's such a complete player. He's so mesmerizing. And this performance, again, Barcelona may not be what they once were, but still going to the Camp Nou, going up against that club, putting on that type of performance with guys out, amazing performance, one of the best that we have seen over the past few years, and again, giving his team such an edge going into the second leg. For years, a fun debate in the soccer community has been, who is the third best player in the world behind Messi and Ronaldo, ready to take up the torch when those two eventually leave the game. At different points, there have been a lot of different candidates over the years. For example, Neymar has definitely been in the conversation. Some people have even argued that Eden Hazard maybe should be in the conversation over the years. And of course, recently, Robert Lewandowski, what he's been doing at Bayern Munich and his goal scoring record. A lot of good answers there, but I think there's no question at this moment, it has to be Kylian Mbappe. He's got everything you want in a superstar, from his personality to his play. That speed, of course, is iconic. His finishing ability is world class. No question in my mind, he is at the very least the third best player in the world, with an argument that he could be ranked higher. You saw the performances from this past week from Messi and Ronaldo. Granted, there are some flaws on Barcelona and Juventus that can be attributed to those performances, but still, they did less with more this week than what Mbappe was able to accomplish, again, without Neymar and without Di Maria. It's been an honor to watch the meteoric rise of this young man's career. He hasn't even hit his prime yet. He is not only the future, but he is the present, and this current Champions League tournament could be his crowning moment. He was so close last year to bringing PSG to glory. Alongside this performance, if he is able to lead them to a final victory, it would only add to his already profound legacy and what is already becoming the age of Kylian Mbappe. So before I move on to talk about the other three Champions League matches, I want to say a quick few things that are non-Kylian Mbappe related. PSG, want to give a shout out to Moise Kean and Marco Verratti. Fantastic performances alongside Mbappe to help drive that PSG offense. Verratti's passing was just on another level, and his ability to break up play is also really good. And Kean, getting an opportunity there, PSG, putting a nice little goal off of a free kick. Great performance. For Barcelona, just showed and exposed the flaws that they have right there. Messi had no help. Dembele and Griezmann missed plenty of chances in this match. And then on defense, Gerard Piqué, they rushed him back from injury. He did not look good. Jordi Alba didn't look good. Let's ease off Serginho Dest. I don't know many people in the world that could mark Mbappe when he is on that type of form. But the other guys, again, they've been around a long time, a lot of experience, and they've been great players over the years. But Barcelona just looked really slow and really old in this match. And of course, you saw the arguing between Piqué and Griezmann. Not a lot of leadership going on there. So a lot of problems with Barcelona. PSG took advantage. Didn't see it coming in that magnitude of a way, but PSG were able to get it done. Now I want to transition over to the other three Champions League matches. I want to start off with RB Leipzig versus Liverpool. Of course, that match was played in Budapest, and that seemed to throw off Leipzig a little more than it did Liverpool. Liverpool were able to take advantage of a couple of mistakes from Leipzig's defense and basically cruised to a 2-0 away victory. Mo Salah and Sadio Mane got on the score sheet, which is a positive development there for Liverpool. But again, they came off the backs of a couple of different mistakes from Leipzig. I believe it was Sabitzer in the midfield who played a really bad back pass towards his goalkeeper that Salah took and was able to break into the box and finish for the 1-0 lead at the time. And then Yaya Upamecano, who just got his transfer, at least was announced that he'll be moving to Bayern Munich in the summer, one of the most prized center backs in the world at this time. Big news, big week for him, but a horrible mistimed challenge on Sadio Mane led to another breakaway for Liverpool. Mane finished it off this time. And yeah, Liverpool were basically able to cruise the rest of the way. Leipzig had some chances, especially early on. I think they hit the post at least once. But this was about Liverpool, again, kind of waking up finally. Defense, figuring it out, keeping a clean sheet, and the offense taking advantage of their opportunities this time and actually finishing off their shots. So, of course, they got a little help here from Leipzig, but you'll take anything at this point. So it was a good performance there by Liverpool to get back to their winning ways. Leipzig, they were just uncharacteristically poor, especially on the defensive end. Upamecano had some bad passes throughout the match as well. Again, he is one of the biggest names right now in terms of transfers, but a lot of teams across Europe, whether in the Premier League, Real Madrid, or other places, wanted his services. Bayern will be getting him, but he did not look worthy of that type of praise on this night and led to Leipzig's downfall. And they have a lot of ground to make up. Again, those two goals are technically away goals, so it puts them in even a further hole. good for Liverpool to get back to their winning ways, even if it was with some help from Leipzig. Next up, while Barcelona PSG can obviously grab the headlines for this past week, Porto can claim the biggest upset as they were able to beat Juventus 2-1 at home in the first leg for their first win over the Italian side in 6 attempts in the Champions League. This was a really weird match, right? Juventus were caught sleepwalking at the beginning of both halves. They conceded 63 seconds into the match, and then in the second half, they conceded 19 seconds in. The first goal, once again, really bad back pass. I think it was between Bentancur and Szczesny that was pounced on by one of the Porto players for the first goal. And then the second, right from the kickoff, Porto were able to work it up through the sideline, got it into the box, and were able to get a close strike there for a 2-0 lead. Ronaldo, pretty quiet on the night. Dybala was already out due to injury, but thankfully for Juventus, Federico Chiesa was able to get a late strike in the match to get that crucial away goal, and you would still like to favor Juventus going back home for the second leg, but they've left no room for error. Porto, again, it's all about effort. It's all about taking advantage of your opponent. Just unimaginable that Juventus would not only concede once very early on in the match, but twice right from the kickoff in the second half. That's got to be so aggravating for Andrea Pirlo and his team. But again, getting that away goal, Juventus, I got to think will tighten things up. Ronaldo will play better, but still, crucial win for Porto to get off to a good start in this tie. Make things a little interesting. I thought Juventus would run away with this, or at least keep Porto off the board. They scored twice, so a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of mystery headed into the second leg between these two clubs. And lastly, of these 4 matchups, this is the one I probably got the most on the nose. I told y'all to expect some goals, and we were not disappointed. After receiving some free motivation on Tuesday from Kylian Mbappe, as he put it, Borussia Dortmund striker Erling Haaland put on a show Wednesday, scoring 2 goals and adding an assist in Dortmund's 3-2 first leg win at Sevilla. The home side took an early 1-0 lead thanks to a deflection on the goal, but they could not handle the pace and power of Haaland, who showcased all of his abilities in this match. His ability to collect the ball, turn and run at defenders, spray some passes, but also get into the box and showcase his world-class finishing ability. He's now up to 18 goals in just 13 career Champions League matches, and he's one of only 2 players to hit that mark before the age of 21. The other player, Kylian Mbappe, of course. So again, to get 3 crucial away goals in this match as well gives an advantage to Dortmund. However, they conceded late on a free kick. That's what led to the 3-2 scoreline. So Sevilla still technically in this match. Dortmund's defense still has a lot of holes that they need to fix. But when you've got Haaland, when you've got Jadon Sancho, when you've got Marco Reus, and when you got someone like Dahoud chipping in with the goal, Dortmund's offense is just too explosive. I said Haaland was the best player in this tie. He definitely proved it during the first leg and gave Dortmund a tremendous advantage going into that second leg at home. So that was the first week of the round of 16 in the Champions League. So good to have this tournament back. And of course, we get 4 more matchups next week. We've got some even ties in Atletico Madrid versus Chelsea and Atalanta versus Real Madrid, and a couple of David versus Goliath matchups. You've got Lazio versus Bayern Munich, and you've got Borussia Mönchengladbach versus Manchester City. So a very entertaining start to the round of 16. Can't wait to see what next week matches bring. And of course, when we get to that second leg in March, how will these ties finish up and who will be moving on to the quarterfinals? So moving on, going to talk some soccer in America. Of course, going to start off with Major League Soccer. We're still a ways away from the season actually kicking off, but teams are still making some pretty big moves here in the offseason. And we got to start with Orlando City SC. It's kind of deja vu all over again for them, signing a former Brazilian international who's got quite the experience and pedigree coming over from Europe. This time, it's former AC Milan and Chelsea striker Alexandre Pato. Pato last played for Sao Paulo in Brazil, where he scored 9 goals in 35 appearances overall, but the 31-year-old has been out of action since August of 2020 when the club terminated his contract. He's not going to be a designated player. His contract is going to be brought down with general allocation money. So maybe not quite as big as the Kaká signing all those years ago, but still pretty big move here by Orlando. They already have a pretty solid contingent of Brazilian players on their team. Now they bring in someone with the experience and pedigree for playing for the Brazilian national team and bigger clubs across Europe like Pato. You pair him up with Nani, that's a pretty interesting dynamic duo right there. Also, remember, they just loaned out Daryl DK to Barnsley, so they're without a little bit of goal-scoring production. You bring in Pato, again, it'll be interesting to see what he can bring to MLS, especially at this age, but he's got a proven track record, and I'm really excited to see what he can bring to Orlando. Next up, Atlanta United announced the signing of defensive midfielder Santiago Sosa from Argentina club River Plate this past week. The 21-year-old made 14 appearances for the club last year, including 6 in the Copa Libertadores, and could feature for Argentina at the upcoming Tokyo Olympics. So Atlanta getting back a little bit to what made them successful, finding those players from Latin and South America. Hopefully this kid can kind of play that Darlington Nagbe type role, defensive midfielder, and help shore up Atlanta and get them back up towards the prominent parts of MLS. And lastly, missed the story from a couple weeks ago, but the new boys in MLS, Austin FC, announced the signing of their second ever designated player, midfielder Tomas Potocino from Argentina side Talleres. Potocino originally came up through the Boca Juniors system before debuting for that club before transferring over to Talleres. So interesting signing here for Austin. Pair him up with Dominguez, their other designated player. Again, really excited to see what Austin will be able to bring in their first season in MLS. Interesting signing here. By the way, Potocino, no relation to the current PSG head coach, Mauricio Potocino, but still cool to hear more news from Austin, and can't wait to see in a couple months what they look like in their first season in MLS. Next up, going to talk some women's soccer, and like I said on last week's episode, I'll get to the SheBelieves Cup once it wraps up, since it kind of falls in an awkward time when I'm taping this episode, but I do want to give an update on a couple of players who will not feature in the tournament. Manchester City midfielder and U.S. women's national team player Sam Mewis had to withdraw from the roster due to injury, as did Canadian striker and the all-time goal scorer in women's international soccer history, Christine Sinclair. So a couple of blows for both U.S. and Canada. Mewis has been on fire for the U.S., especially over these past few friendly matches, so it's tough not to be able to see her continue her progress. And of course, Sinclair, she's a legend and the best player in Canadian history, and the fact that she won't be there for the first matchup, especially against the U.S., that's kind of tough that we won't get to see her. But still, promises to be an excellent tournament. And again, at the end of it, I'll wrap up and recap all 3 of those matches for the U.S. And again, hopefully some good performances involved, continued development for the younger players, and a good look to see some of the veterans hopefully rediscover their form after being out for a couple of months. Speaking of legends in women's soccer, some NWSL news from this past week. Brazilian international and 6-time FIFA Women's World Player of the Year Marta agreed to a new contract to return to the Orlando Pride. Marta is Orlando's all-time leader in goals and assists, and last year during the fall series, she played every minute at 34 years old. She's still killing it even as she enters the later stages of her career. She's a legend, and hopefully this upcoming season, Orlando, as we all know, didn't get to play in the Challenge Cup due to COVID-19. Hopefully we'll get to see them a lot more, and of course that means we'll get to see a lot more of Marta next season. And lastly, I want to get to a couple of transactions from the USL Championship over the past week, and got to start with one that made some pretty big headlines across the landscape of U.S. soccer, and that would be LA Galaxy 2, announcing the signing of 15-year-old midfielder Alex Alcala to his first ever professional contract. Alcala previously trained with Manchester City and Barcelona and has represented Mexico at the under 15 and under 16 levels. He joined the Galaxy's academy last year and has now signed his first professional contract and will feature for their USL Championship side. So this kid's already got a lot of hype attached to him. He's got a couple of cool YouTube videos already up that showcase his skills. Obviously, he has trained at a lot of big clubs. Hopefully, he'll be able to continue his development, maybe switch his allegiance to the U.S. if he's going to be this type of a great player and already signing pro contracts at 15. But still, really cool to see a guy like this, a young player, get to sign already professionally and get to showcase his skills at a higher level. Next up, the Miami FC, once again, opening the pocketbooks to sign someone with a huge European pedigree. This time it is Italian outside back Luca Antonelli, who they announced the signing of on Wednesday. Antonelli brings a wealth of experience to Miami, including 13 appearances for the Italian national team, as well as 215 Serie A matches with the likes of AC Milan, Parma, and Genoa. Somebody with that type of experience, again, it's got to be a huge plus to Miami, who, as I've talked about a little bit, fell flat in their first season in the USL, but they've been spending some big time money, bringing in a lot of key players that have had success, not just in the USL Championship, but all over the world. Antonelli, with that type of pedigree, can't wait to see what he brings to Miami, especially at that outside back position. This is going to be a pretty fun team to watch. And lastly, I want to get to a few moves that Indian 11 made over the past week. They've had a really busy week in terms of transactions. Let's start off with one of their forwards, Josh Penn, becoming the third player this past offseason to make the move up to MLS after he was acquired by Inter Miami CF. Indy then chose to replace him with striker Gordon Wild, who joins the club after competing for the LA Galaxy last season. And lastly, Indy announced the signing of veteran center back in St. Louis's own AJ Cochran after he spent the past 2 seasons with Phoenix Rising FC. So it's good to see more USL players make the move up to MLS. Penn joins forward Tyler Passioner and goalkeeper Evan Newton on making the jump from Indy this offseason. They get a guy in Wild who's got some pretty big experience with the Galaxy. He actually assisted on Javier Chicharito Hernandez's first ever MLS goal during the MLS is Back tournament. And of course, getting a guy like AJ, plenty of experience over his career. He's been a lockdown force at Phoenix over the past few seasons. Great get for Indy, who are a pretty solid defensive team already. So despite the fact that they've lost a lot of production, they've been able to retool, bring in some guys, and I think they will be a pretty big force in the Eastern Conference this upcoming season. Now let's get into some St. Louis soccer news, and there's a lot to get to from this past week. Got to start off with St. Louis City SC announcing over social media last weekend that they had their first invitational tryout for their initial academy team. They also mentioned in the post that future opportunities to try out will be announced at a later date, but we got to get to the pushback over that social media post due to the fact that in the picture that most of the players in it were predominantly white. Now, I think the main takeaway from this is it was the very first tryout. It was invitational based, so not only is it not going to represent St. Louis on a demographic scale, but it's not going to represent St. Louis on a soccer scale. There's still many steps to take and to go through, and there will be plenty of opportunities for open tryouts that will be more representative of the different communities here in St. Louis. Obviously, I get it. The club talked a lot about representing all of the communities in St. Louis, and this first tryout clearly did not do that, but it could also be an indictment of the current play-to-pay system and how it discriminates against people from minority communities. But still, I think it's too early to get really upset about this. It was the first tryout. There's a lot of more tryouts to come, and of course, then we have to worry about the final product. But it's good that we have these high expectations. St. Louis, again, one of the soccer capital of the world. We pride ourselves on being a great soccer culture, and that, of course, means inclusion of all the communities in St. Louis. So hopefully, as we get more into this process, we'll begin to see more of that inclusion, and hopefully, this will just be blown out of proportion. But still, in the grand scheme of things, very excited to see that St. Louis City SC has started the process for looking for players for their academy team, and can't wait to see what the finished product looks like. Next up, there were good and bad announcements this week concerning USL League 2 and some local St. Louis area clubs. Let's start with the good news, and that would be St. Louis Scott Gallagher announcing that they will be joining USL League 2 for their upcoming season, which begins in May. The season will consist of 14 matches, 7 of which will be home, which I assume will be hosted at the soccer park. So an excellent opportunity for Scott Gallagher to help their players to continue to develop, to get them some really competitive matches and provide a path for them to advance in the ranks of professional soccer. They've been doing some great stuff, obviously, with the hires of Brad Davis now as the club president. You've got Steve Chishu as the academy director. Really exciting times for them. And of course, it's just going to be great to see some soccer back out there at the soccer park with St. Louis FC being no more. So again, exciting development for St. Louis Scott Gallagher. Will begin play in May. Of course, on the other end of that announcement would be the St. Louis Lions, who have been a member of USL League 2 for the past couple of seasons. They announced that they will be sitting out the 2021 season due to financial setbacks because of the pandemic. The club said in a statement that they are preparing to come back in 2022 and that the women's team is planning on competing in the 2021 season in the WPSL. So again, good that the Lions have their women's team competing still, but tough break for the Lions men's team. Again, they've been doing some great work since they became a thing here in St. Louis. Hopefully they come back stronger in 2022. I bet they still encourage donations to their GoFundMe page, which again, on a couple of previous episodes, I had the pleasure of talking with Tony Glavin at the time, the president of the St. Louis Lions. I bet they'd still accept donations. I bet they'd appreciate it if you picked up some gear, if they're selling it. And again, we got to support the women's team here coming up for their upcoming season, and hopefully the men's team will come back even stronger in 2022. Next up, St. Louis Ambush announced the acquisition of 3 players from the Harrisburg Heat on loan this week. Defenders Patrick Thompson and William Eskay, as well as forward Jared Gibson, will be with the Ambush for the remainder of the 2021 season after the Heat opted out due to the pandemic. So I know the Ambush, they had a little bit of dip in form recently, but that was mostly because of the fact they were missing a lot of players due to either sickness, due to injury, or due to quarantine. So bringing in 3 guys to help with that cause and kind of beef up the numbers there should help the Ambush get back on track. I know their match is coming up here against San Diego here in a couple of days, and hopefully they'll be able to figure things out and get into March riding a little bit of a hot streak. And lastly, just want to provide a quick update on SLU Soccer. Really hyped up their upcoming Bronze Boot match versus SIUE with Bill McDermott on last week's episode. I warned that it possibly couldn't happen. Unfortunately, that is what occurred. The matchup between the two rivals was postponed due to the inclement weather that has been going on in St. Louis over the past week. The women's soccer match versus SIU was also postponed. Both matches are expected to be rescheduled for later in the spring. So hopefully we still get those matchups. Again, that SIUE SLU rivalry, such a big part of the culture here in St. Louis. So again, hopefully things work out, pandemic and weather-wise, that we can have that match. So to wrap up the show today, since I don't have a guest, I wanted to try out a brand new segment and see what you guys think. I think that soccer's ability to connect people and cultures and industries all over the world is second to none. And I wanted to highlight some cool stories from the past week that have soccer connections, but they aren't necessarily focused on what's happening on the pitch. So I want to do that here in this brand new segment called Extra Time News Stories. The first news story features new Fulham striker Josh Maja, who scored a brace in his full debut for his new club this past weekend in a 2-0 victory on the road versus Everton, which was actually Fulham's first victory in their history at Goodison Park. If his name sounds familiar, it's because Maja was heavily featured on the second season of the Netflix documentary Sunderland Till I Die, where he scored 15 goals for the then League One side before moving on to Bordeaux in France. Full disclosure, I finally got to Sunderland Till I Die last fall, and it's a tremendous documentary. It does a great job of showing what a football club can mean to a town. Maja was excellent in it, and of course then he moved on to Bordeaux, and now he has popped up in the Premier League, had a fantastic debut for Fulham, who are currently fighting relegation right now. Obviously, Maja has a little bit of experience in that department, so hopefully he'll be able to help Fulham stay up, but it's really cool to see how his career has developed, and now he's playing in the biggest league in the world. So cool to see him pop up. Again, fans of that documentary would have recognized his name immediately, and now he's killing it in the early stages of his Premier League career. My next news story features a pair of Hollywood stars, Deadpool actor Ryan Reynolds and the creator of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Rob McElhenney, completed the takeover of Wrexham AFC this past week. Wrexham are a Welsh club who currently compete in the 5th tier of English soccer. The duo have initially invested nearly $3 million into the club, with a certain portion of that money allocated to improving the women's football team. Wrexham are actually the 3rd oldest club in world football and have been fan-owned since 2011. So again, really cool story. A couple of guys that are familiar in the Hollywood scene now getting into the soccer business and giving some pub to that club there. Interested to see how active they will be in terms of, football operations and how much they'll be able to pour into the club over the years. But still, it's a big news story. It got people talking, got people interested in Wrexham. And who knows, man, we'll see if they'll be able to get promoted and continue their trajectory through English football. It would be really funny and cool to see Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, owners of a Premier League club. So who knows? Maybe we'll get an Always Sunny episode out of it, or maybe Deadpool will show up at a match. But still, really cool news story featuring a couple guys investing in soccer, and also really cool that they're going to help invest in the women's football team as well. So cool little story. Love both those guys' work. And now I'm interested to see what they can do in soccer. Next up, going to talk about the Australian Open. You want to know who's been really well represented at the Australian Open? The NWSL. It started off with the current world number 1 in women's tennis, Naomi Osaka. Osaka actually invested in the North Carolina Courage last month, but this past week, she debuted the team's new kits for the upcoming season before one of her matches. Really cool that she's already showing that type of interest, and she's already playing a huge part in the club already. On the other side of things, someone she just recently beat at the tournament is Serena Williams. Williams is, of course, part of that large conglomerate ownership group of the upcoming NWSL team, Angel City FC, who are set to begin play in 2022. She was asked about that, and also asked about Osaka's involvement in the NWSL, and she really gave a lot of props to the league and said that women's soccer is actually one of the most exciting sports out there. So it's really cool to see that Osaka and Serena are not sitting on the sidelines on this. They're really hyping up the clubs that they are a part of, and this is how you build interest in the NWSL. You get these mainstream stars, whether it's in sports, whether it's in movies and television or whatever, to be a part of these ownership groups, to help plug them and to help support them, not just with money, but also with their time, their resources, and the following that they have over social media and across the world. So again, really cool. They didn't really have to do this, especially with the new kits with Osaka, but still they were able to do it and cause quite a bit of buzz here while the NWSL is in their preseason. Next up, moving on to the world of esports. And I just found this story a little bit interesting, and forgive me if I mess up this guy's name. 15-year-old Anders Vestergaard of Denmark saw his 535 win streak on FIFA Weekend League snapped over this past week. He lost 5-1 as he tried to play an all-out type style to secure his streak, but he was unable to do so and instead saw his record go down. Right now, Vedragon, he can't compete in the FIFA Global Series because he is too young. To be this talented at this age already is quite an impressive feat. Again, online versus random opponents at random times, 535 straight wins. Really cool, really impressive. Again, esports, one of the fastest growing industries in the world. And to see someone dominate like that, dominated on FIFA, I know some pretty good FIFA players, but 535, that's a whole nother different animal. So congrats to him. Still very impressive what he was able to accomplish. And I'm pretty positive that he'll be able to start up a new streak real soon. My last news story concerns Marcus Rashford. The Manchester United winger was named to the 2021 Time 100 Next list this past week due to his campaign to provide students in need with meals for the summer during the pandemic. He received a ringing endorsement from the 7-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton and a nice little piece detailing his nomination. So again, congrats to Marcus Rashford. It's amazing what he was able to accomplish last year. We all need more people like him doing things for people in need with the platform that they have. So hopefully this kind of spurs a little bit of a movement, gets players more involved with these types of causes in their countries, and we can continue to improve the world. So congrats to Rashford to being named to this prestigious list, and hopefully he'll be able to continue his great work moving forward. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Again, comment on anything, any of the topics that you saw here today, some things that I missed, or about the new segment that I debuted or anything else going on right now. Feel free to start up a conversation with me. Also, Atletico TV, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Make sure you go to our Facebook page and check that out. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Looking forward to some more great soccer over the weekend and into the Champions League next week. Have a great weekend.